All right, before I start, I want to quickly go over a problem that a number of you have run into now. Instead of sending 6 emails that all say the same thing, I'll tell you all how to fix this problem. One of the things we're running into is using 64-bit programs on 32-bit machines. I know those of you who are using your laptops are probably not experiencing this, but those of you who are doing some of your work here in a virtual machine, that's a 32-bit machine. Then when you go home, most likely you've got a 64-bit machine with 64-bit version of Access, a 64-bit version of Visual Studio, but you were developing it in class using a 32-bit version of Access and probably a 32-bit version. And when you get those back and forth, it all gets confused. So the way to avoid that problem is to bring this down to the least common denominator, the 32-bit operating system. So we're going to tell our projects that regardless of whether you're on a 64-bit machine or a 32-bit machine for this simple little thing here, just make it a 32-bit project. Again, real world, this doesn't typically happen. It's the compiling and the different versions of compiling. You don't do that. You go to work. You don't take your work home with you like you do here. Unless you're a campus dean, that's different. But you don't take your work home. Skyward won't let you. You want to work more, then work more, but at work. But you can't take it home, put it on your desktop, and work on it there. That's proprietary stuff.
Actually, Skyward and Sentry are both giving you computers to take home.
Oh, they're giving you computers to take home, but then that computer is configured to match with what else is going on. So to tell this project, because you're a student, that you want to develop for x86 only, you double click, bring up the properties, single click. And I believe it's under build. And here it says any CPU. It's lying. It'll build it for whatever you're on right now, but then if you try to transfer it someplace else, it may or may not work, and you get your DS, your data set, are no longer defined, and as Sam and Andy found in the back, it works here, and I go home and it doesn't work, and the easy answer is just change this to x86 or x64 or x86, I'm sorry. That still didn't solve, then you have other problems.
No, I didn't see that though. I just saw the thing that was under. I didn't even notice that.
Yep. So you change it to x86 and that'll run on any machine because a 32-bit computer can handle it, obviously, and a 64-bit can as well. So that'll give you the portability that you need. That's only if you're getting errors. Again, those of you using laptops are probably not running into this because you're using that same laptop to do all your building. But if you're using your laptop at school to do stuff and then plug in the flash drive in on your desktop, you may have issues. If you have issues with stuff that was working when you were at school and now you're home and it stopped, it's probably this. And so far, a couple people have done it and it seems to solve the problems. Once you do this, you just have to restart it again to build a new version of it. Okay, last time we added a new database, just a little bit of review here. We added a different database that had a two-table structure instead of a single table structure. We have an orders table and a customers table in the database. Unfortunately, our XSD did not have both tables, and just because you replace the database doesn't mean that this snapshot of the database is going to update automatically. Any changes you make to the database, you're probably going to have to come into the XSD and make corresponding changes. So that database design stuff that we spent so much time on in RDD, critical, because if you need to modify that, it takes some time to modify the XSD, probably need to modify the business class, we did, right? Then we had to go into the GUI and modify some things there, take out the text boxes, put it in combo. Oh my goodness. Little things, add a field, still. Got to add it to the XSD, got to add to the business class in 3 or 4 different places, probably got to add it to the GUI. So the better your database design, the less effect it has, but bottom line is after a while you get used to, here's how you add a field. We've been talking agile. We're not going to spend forever trying to make sure our database is perfect before we start developing anything. But when it's not, there are consequences. So we added the extra tables, duplicated the queries. Here's the customers table. We brought that in. We're not going to do much with customers here, but we did create a customers class that references this lookup. So here's our customers class, and just to get a little bit of practice, we added the properties. The customer name actually came over from the old class, from the orders class, so we just copied them. And then the main reason we need this class for the purposes of this unit and this class, this course, is we need this data access method. This method is going to give us the lookup data that we need to fill this combo box. I want my users to be able to pick customers by name, but behind the scenes I want to store their ID numbers. We do that with our lookup table. So we added that to the class. And these other ones we just transferred over because we had them before. We're not going to be using them. We are not going to create another form called form customer that allows me to add new customers, edit existing customer data. The process is identical, so I'm not going to take class time to do that other form. So this class is already set up to be ready to respond to and work with another GUI. We're just not going to go there because it's just redundant stuff and we don't have a whole lot of time. But what we do need is this lookup table, because that's where this lookup data, because that's what we're going to use for the combo box. In pizza orders class, all we really need to do, all we did here was change the customer first name, last name into an ID number. We added validation saying this is an auto number field in a different table. It has to be greater than 0. That's about all we can do. Check to make sure it's greater than 0. If it is, take it. Otherwise, they probably didn't grab something from the list. Everything else here was just tweaks, like customer ID instead of customer name. Invalid fields checks the customer ID instead of the customer name. ToString, get record, those needed to be tweaked, and save was the last one we tweaked. Added the customer ID in here in the appropriate spot. So because we made some changes, we needed to modify the business class, then we shifted over to the design, replaced 2 text boxes with 1 combo box, took out all the code related to those text boxes. Then in form load, this is where the key action happens here. In form load, we added a command to load our customers. So here's form load. In addition to loading sodas and the grid, we also added a function, a method to load that combo box. And here's that method. What that method does is it calls the customer class, the one we were just looking at, and said, give me your lookup data, please. And assigns that data to the data source of the combo box. A combo box has a data source. We haven't seen that before because we've never had a combo box needed. We've not used one for lookups. A combo box has a data source property that we've been ignoring until now, but now we're going to use it. This says go to the database, get me the customer lookup information, which includes a customer ID and their concatenated name. Get me that information and send it back and make it the data source of this combo box. Make it the data source. So now my combo box has got basically a little mini table in it with IDs and customer names. Well, if we just left it at that, remember we were getting these generic database row entries in our combo box because we had not told the combo box how to take this table, lookup table, and display it or use it. We defined the display member as the customer field. These are the 2 fields that are in that query. If we go back to the XSD here real quick, here's the 2 fields, customer ID and customer. This one is going to be displayed in the combo box, but it's not used for anything except display the human readable form. This one is the one we're going to store and transfer to the business class every time the customer or the user picks a new customer. So those are the 2 names. we define the display member. Here's what I want you to display, whatever's in the customer field. But behind the scenes, I want you to grab the customer ID and use that as the actual value for this field is kind of the way I look at it. It's the value for this field. We're not going to take the customer name, Gall, comma, Volker, all that string and put it into the orders table. That's not how this works anymore. We take the ID number that correlates to Gall, comma, Volker and put that into the database. This is so common. It's actually built into the combo box that you can display one field while tracking or while saving the data from a different field, the value member. I believe that's where we left off. If I run this, the drop-down list is there. I got to figure this guy out yet. If that doesn't go away after we're done here, I got to figure that out. It's a cast error. Okay. There's all my names. And I believe we actually wrote a validating event last time. It says whenever I leave the combo box, stop so I can look around. Here's my combo box selected index changed event. And what we did is after running the program, put a breakpoint here, we looked inside and saw that the selected value changed. Every time I picked a different name, I got a different ID number. The other thing to recognize here is notice this does not say value member. That's a mistake I always make. The value member is the name of the field whose value you want to capture. The selected value is the actual number that's inside the value member field. So when you're defining and filling the grid, you use the value member, but when you're trying to figure out which one did they pick, it's not selected index. There is still a selected index here, but it doesn't mean anything to us anymore. You have to use the selected value property for the combo box. And we converted it to an integer so that it matches. We ran this and saw that every single one of these changed. Every time we clicked on a different name, we got a different ID number. So this says whatever that ID number is, convert it to an integer because that's what we're looking for, and transfer it to the customer ID in the business class. Here's the notes on the value member stuff. The validating event for the combo box. It's like any other. Clear it, set an error if there's an error. The selected value, converted to the appropriate type, probably an integer, is simply transferred to the field. If there's a problem with this, then an error marker displays. And we see the error marker, I'm just not quite sure why it's there. Oh, I think I do know why, because of this next part. What if the user leaves that combo box blank? Because anytime we want to, it's a combo box, we can type in it. Please. Click it harder, I guess. There we go. If the user wipes this out, what happens? You get an error marker. Specified field. Specified cast is not value. What did I cast here? It's blank. I'm not sure. What happens if I type a name in here? Specified cast is not valid because there is no selected value for this text. And so what we want to do before we validate is intercept that and say, hey, if you got a blank one, do something. And if you have something that the user typed, there's not going to be a selected value. There won't be one. So how do we know if the user left it blank? We can check to see if the combo box text is equal to the empty string. And then my notes say if that's true, and order.order ID customer ID, excuse me, equals null. We made it nullable, so we could initialize it to null, meaning nothing's been selected, and we'll see that initialization's value next time. But there's another circumstance that we need to handle, and that's what if they type something. I'm going to handle that separately. Else if the CMB customer dot, how do I know if they typed something that isn't on the list? Look at the selected index, very good, to see if it's what? -1. This is left over from unit 6. So if the selected index is equal to double equal to a -1, then what? Send it. No. What do we do? What do we send for a selected value? It's a good question. Could we send null? Yes, good. If we did, then we can combine these two, because if they leave it blank, that's not on the list, that's a -1. But what I want here is to have two separate error messages, one saying you have to fill in this field, and another one saying you got to pick from the list. What this also allows you to do is, what if this is optional? Customer name for a pizza order is not going to be optional, but in many of your programs, it's potentially optional. If it's optional and they leave it blank, that's okay. We need to modify ours now to say in this program it's not. So some of the stuff we're doing right now for your car maintenance program, for instance, the shop blank is okay. So you might not add all of this. So what am I going to do? I'm going to say 0. I'm going to set the customer ID to 0, which is not a valid value, right? So here I'm kind of sending signals. And I'm saying if they leave it blank, send null. It's missing. If they pick something that's not on the list, send a different value. Could I make this a -1? Sure. I can make it whatever I want. I just chose 0 because it's not legal. Else, send them the actual selected value. I think that's going to get rid of my extra error. Because what was happening is we had an empty string. The selected value was not set. So it tried to convert it to an integer. Null converted to an integer is what it was complaining about. Now, if it's empty, I'm going to intercept it. If it's not on the list, I'm going to intercept it. And if anything else, it must be on the list, so I'm going to send the selected value. I think my error marker is going to go away. Or at least it's not going to be very generic. Still got a cast error. Why am I getting a cast error? I'm going to put a breakpoint in here. I think what's happening is the selected index changed. Hang on a second, I was having another thought. Whenever I load the grid, it causes a selected index change event. That's better last is what I seem to remember. What's an initialized form? Initialized form sets the max order date in pies. That shouldn't affect it too much. Okay, so that thought process was not quite right. So I'm going to come in here and set a breakpoint and try to figure out what's going on. So I honestly don't know. Notice before my program even displays on the screen, I hit this page and say CMB customer. That shouldn't cause any trouble. Step over it. If the customer text equals the empty string, it's a data row view. What? Customer text is? So that's false. Selected index is 0, so that's the first item on the list. Selected value is a data row view converted to an int. Is it selected value? Maybe I'm missing a piece here. This sets it. How do I get it? Inserting a new record. It's supposed to be in the selected value. Maybe I need to load, let's try this. Sequence might be important after all. What if I load the grid first so there's some stuff in the grid, then load the combo box? Nope. Made it worse. Oh, the reason it's worse is because there's no sodas yet. Boy, this could be interesting. There's also nothing in the combo box. Loading the grid actually selects the first record. Well, this is where I started. Does that solve the bad data error? Seems to. Why would that solve a bad day? Oh, because the pizza order had never been instantiated. So that probably needs to come first. Instantiated, set the mins and max. I would say that's good to be first. But I think the sodas have to be loaded and the customers have to be loaded before I can load the grid, because the grid's going to click one of those, and if there's nothing in the combo boxes, that's going to cause trouble. Now I'm back to this again. Specified cast is not valid. Wonder if my display record is causing trouble. I don't know what's wrong, unfortunately. Here's my display record. We took the customer out. When we set it, we just reverse the process. AnOrder.customer ID. And when you go this direction, you don't have to cast it, even though this can be generic type. Because we're sending it an integer, it handles it just fine. Let's see if that resolves the issue. Yep, that was what was missing. It's my display. So now I've got the right piece of information in here. But if I leave it blank and leave, I don't get an error message because my business class, that's not right. I'm having a rough day here. That breakpoint back in there again and try to get a feel for what's happening. Doesn't look like the validating event is firing. I forget to wire that the other day. design. Here's my combo box. What events does it have? Oh, selected index changed is tied to selected index change, not validating. Wait a minute. This is a selected index changed event. That happens every single time we pick a different one. We don't even have to leave. So this happens a little bit quicker, though my notes say use validation. That way they can pick and wipe out. As soon as I wipe out, that changes the selected index, the error marker shows up. Okay. So one of my problems here is I used selected index changed and it didn't follow my notes. I should have been using the validating event, not the selected index changed event. So I'm going back to the form. Here's my combo box. I'm going to go down to the validating event and create it. CMB soda validating, CMB selected index changed. So this is actually going to tuck in here and I'm going to wipe out the old one. So now the validating event does all of this testing, not the selected index changed event. Try catch else. Now when I run it, that old event's going to be over there taking up space. Nope, another problem. Why? Yep, thank you. That's the event that I deleted. Okay, now this is good. See what happens when I take it out and leave. Now we hit that event. That's what I wanted. It was actually hitting that. I don't think it was even hitting it for selected index change. I put a breakpoint in there and never hit it. So here's the text. It's empty. So we should be sending null to the business class. Business class said, I don't like that because null is not an acceptable value. And let's see what the message is. You must select a customer from the list. Okay, so that's cool. Making progress, finally. What if I type in some junk? Leave. It's not blank, but the selected index is -1. So I send a 0, which is also not valid. Get the same error message though. Must select a customer from the list. Really, those two error messages are they that much different? Must select a customer from the list also says is required, right? In a way. So maybe that's okay. But let's add some logic to the business class to get me different error messages because that'll help you with your assignments. So back to the business class. For pizza orders, I want to modify the customer ID validation. If the value that we're getting is null, then we throw a new exception. It says customer is a required field. Then I'm going to reverse my logic a little bit here. Say if it's less than or equal to 0, then throw an exception saying you've got to pick from the list, else save it. So I've got my bad stuff at the top, good stuff at the bottom. I think I could have reversed that and said if it's greater than 0, it's good. Else, if it's null, tell them it's required. Else, it must be off the list. See if we get different error messages now. Required field. Pick from the list. Seems to work. Finally. So if it's allowed to be null, your logic here needs to be a little bit different, because null would mean it's blank, but that's acceptable. Like for shops, like for stores where you bought your DVD. So you tweak this logic a little bit in your solutions for those IDs. But the concepts are pretty much the same. The combo box is blank, transfer null. If you try to convert null to an int, you get an error. That's kind of what we were seeing. Business class should ensure the linking value is greater than 0. The business class should convert non-zero values. Convert non-zero values to null if the field is optional. Non-zero values. What? Business class should convert 0 values to null if no. Business class? Not quite sure what that one means. All right, and then we modified display record already. That fixed another one of our errors. Simply transferred what's in the business class to the selected value. Again, the selected value is the actual number. We're changing the number. And then guess what it says? Time for part 4. So back to Blackboard again. We did this last hour. Different class. Let's pick a due date. Do a quick check on column 3. That's due the 16th. What you'll be doing in that one, and same thing in part 4, is bringing in the new database that has this linking field in it, taking out that field from rebuilding your XSG, taking out that field from the business class, inserting the new one, same thing on the form, just like we did here, and then tying those pieces together. It's not terrible, but there are plenty of pitfalls. So as we saw, your part 3 is due here. Last class we talked about how Thursdays, Fridays don't make much difference to me. Week later. Don't hear any screaming or hollering. Pardon me? You just nodded, didn't you? 24th. One thing to remember is the 17-18 for you trivia buffs. Okay? That's your trivia weekend, so get your work done before trivia starts. You won't have any time. Let's go to the 24th. For part 4. And if we go back to that calendar, what does that mean? That means that part 5 will probably be due a week later. Part 6, crystal reports. Whew. Not good. Got 3 days to do your crystal reports assignment. The lecture will happen before that. But if we keep going a week for every one of these, if you keep up, I keep setting the due dates there, that's not a problem. But if you keep turning them in one every week, It's going to get real tight at the end because the 13th is the last day. I'm not going to fill your head with any more stuff, so let's go in the lab for a couple of hours today. Give you a chance to work on whatever you're working on. 3, 4, RDD systems, whatever. A couple of hours of lab. And on Tuesday, we'll start with part 5, which will allow you to insert records.